Hi, everybody. My name is David Jickling, and I'm the president of the Lahontan Audubon Society. Can everybody hear me? Good. There's a thumbs up. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. So thank you all for joining us this evening. We have a kind of an early April presentation. Typically, our monthly membership meetings are the last Tuesday of the month. But this year we're moving it up a little bit because of kind of the very special program we have for you this evening. And that is on the birds of Costa Rica. And I wanted to invite you all to consider joining us. The Lahontan Audubon Society will be hosting a field trip to Costa Rica in February of 2022. And our guide, Mario, will be, who's presenting this evening, will be leading us in that wonderful trip that we're very excited to present. So our speaker tonight will be Mario, and I'll introduce him in just a moment. But I do have just a few housekeeping things I wanted to talk to you all about. The first is certainly that with May coming up, that is when we normally would be nominating and electing new trustees for our board of directors. And we currently have 3 trustees who are, whose terms are expiring and who have indicated that they have served out long enough on the board and are looking for someone else to step up and take over. So I certainly will make a unabashed appeal to all of you who are here this evening to watch our presentation to consider joining us on our board. We would love to have you, and if you are at all interested and need just a little nudge or a little hand twisting, arm twisting, I'm happy to do that and would love for you to reach out to me and contact me or any of us on the board just to learn what it is we do and how much time it takes, etc. It's less effort than you might think to be involved, but we really would love to have any of you who might be interested in joining us participate. So that's, I think, about the only thing I'm going to say is watch for the ballot to come to you in May, toward the end of May. But if you're interested in being a part of that, please reach out to us and let us know, and we'd love to talk to you about the Lahontan Audubon Society. So with that, I'm going to introduce Mario. Mario Cordoba is a, whoop, I just lost my script, pardon me. Mario's been birding since childhood and guiding for over 25 years in Costa Rica. He's guided numerous trips for birding groups and the international natural history organizations, such as the National Audubon Society, Bird Watchers Digest, National Geographic Society. He's Rhodes Scholar and the Sierra Club in Costa Rica, Panama, and Ecuador. Mario, as I mentioned, will be leading a Costa Rica birding trip for the Lahontan Audubon Society in February 2022. And the trip will be talked about a little more in his presentation this evening. Before I turn it over to Mario, I would ask that please, if you can, turn off your video if you have it on, and be sure to turn off your microphone. Both of those can be muted and turned off in the bottom left corner of your screen. So without further ado, I will turn this over to Mario Cordoba. And if you have questions, please use the chat bar at the bottom of the screen to type in your questions. And at the end of the presentation, we will I'll read those questions and Mario will do his best to answer them for you. So thank you, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. Looking forward to seeing you all on field trips in the future, and when we're back meeting again with our regular monthly meetings in person, I look forward to seeing and meeting you then. So Mario, take it away. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you very much. Very kind. And it's a real pleasure to be here. And well, like David said, I'm from Costa Rica. I'm going to start by sharing my screen just briefly here. And then I'll, this one. And, oh, okay, there it goes. So I'm just going to start by sharing a little bit about myself. Well, this trip is basically about the birds of Costa Rica, all the diversity, not necessarily of just birds, but also of life in general, right? As you know, Costa Rica is one of the richest countries in the world in terms of biodiversity. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And this presentation basically is called that, Costa Rica Bird Diversity. A little bit about myself. I started birding as a kid. Basically, I was around 10 when I was able to identify that bird you see on the screen. This is now called the Lessons motmot. Back then, it was called the blue-crowned motmot, but this bird underwent a major split and turned out to have 5 different species after that split. But now it's called that, and that was my spark bird. I found it right near the place we lived, and I remember I had the first Birds of Costa Rica book, and I was able to identify it myself, and then I said, well, that was it for me. So I've been going on since then, leading trips for more than 25 years, essentially here in Costa Rica, but also a couple of other countries outside of here, okay? Now, with our presentation, basically what we're gonna do is try to introduce some of the basic birding areas of the country, as well as some of the reasons why we have so many different species here and why biodiversity is so high in this little country. For those of you that have no idea, the logo under my name, it's the company that I founded 10 years ago. And ever since I've been organizing and leading trips using my own company. So that will be in conjunction with La Hunt, and we're going to be leading this trip and organizing this trip for next year. Hopefully, many of you will be here. Okay, so when we start talking about biodiversity, we need to see that in tropical regions, nature's most remarkable feature is the high diversity of life, right? And that feature reaches its peak in the neotropics, in the New World tropics. Where are the New World tropics? These are basically the, here we go, the American tropics, right? We have a higher diversity here than most other places when it comes to that, okay? And of course, Costa Rica, we are right in the middle of it, right here, located where the arrow is. And for those of you that have never been to Costa Rica, we are located about 10 degrees north of the equator, okay? We border to the north with Nicaragua and to the south with Panama. On the east coast, we have the Caribbean Sea, and on the west coast, as you can see, we have the Pacific Ocean, right? The size of the country, it's 51,100 square kilometers, I'm sorry. That, for those of you that use miles, it's somewhere a little less than 20,000 miles in size, so very, very small. Currently, the population of Costa Rica reaches 5 million people, maybe a little over right now, but 5 million, it's the average. Our capital city, San Jose, sits right in the middle of the country, as you can see here. We speak Spanish here, and like I said, we are roughly 10 degrees north of the equator, okay? Now, not a very big country, as you can see in this other map. You're gonna see a few of these maps, and then at the end, it'll get a little bit more exciting with the birds and things. But as you can see, we're not a really big country, only about 300 miles long and roughly 75 miles across at the narrowest point. Costa Rica, it's compared in size, for those of you in the States, with the state of West Virginia, more or less, for you to give you an idea. We're even smaller than West Virginia, technically. So that is being used as a reference many times for those of you visiting from the States or North America in general. Now let's start by reviewing some of the main reasons why Costa Rica has all these. Here's something here. All these biodiversity. For example, right here, we can say that up to about 60 million years ago, North America extended south, right, to a peninsula, tropical peninsula, to about Nicaragua is today. And then South America itself extended north to what's called the Panamanian Spur, right? Right before that time, 50 to 60 million years ago, there was no land connection until a series of islands emerged, affording an intermittent connection between the two larger land masses of North and South America. Okay, so these underwent a process of volcanic activity, tectonic activity, a lot of earthquakes here at the time, and still today every now and then. But we have, for example, also the effects of roughly 4 tectonic plates around here, the southern part of Central America. So it wasn't really until about maybe 5 to 6 million years ago that Central America obtained the actual configuration that we see here today. Okay, in Costa Rica, here's again at the bottom of these maps, right? A series of, here is first the outer arc, as it was called, the central arc, and then the completion of the country roughly 3 million years ago. So we live in what could easily be some of the newest land in the world right here. Okay, so these allowed us to have a very special condition that gave us, you know, one of the strongest reasons why we have such high diversity of life in this country, and that's going to be shown here in this next slide. For example, once those two land masses were connected, there was an almost immediate, right, exchange of organisms, those going north and those going south. And guess what? The meeting point for them was here, as well as Panama, right? The what's known as Eastern Panama, right? They were right there, almost ready to jump across and go north. And for instance, in birds, we have contributions from North America of, say, maybe quails, owls, sparrows. This is a spotted wood quail, and this is a black-striped sparrow, which both of these are resident birds here, but they originated in North America. Yes, North America. And then other contributions, gnatcatchers, finches, thrushes, those came from North America. From South America, we had a larger contribution, right? Basically, we had several families: tinamous, jacamars, puffbirds, hummingbirds, wood creepers, ovenbirds, antbirds, cotingas, manakins, and the list goes on and on and on, right? Mostly, you know, tropical American birds. Here we have 2 examples, right? This is a member of the cotinga family, 3-wattled bellbird, and the hummingbird here is volcano hummingbird. Both of these are resident and near endemics. We share with Panama a little bit some of these birds. Special note on some of the known as neotropic migrants. For instance, we have this summer tanager, some orioles, some warblers, some vireos even. They originated here in more tropical regions, but then they expanded their range north until they found their breeding grounds in North America, for instance. And then, well, when it gets cold up there, they come back to the ancestral homes here, and they spend the winters and then go back. So they are being known as neotropical migrants. I will give you some numbers in a little bit here. I would like to review another important factor here, which is the, well, the topography of the country. But there's a reason for this, right? We generally, we say that we have 2 coasts, right? There is the, as you saw on the previous slide, this is a picture of Tortuguero on the northeast coast of the country, on the bottom part I'm talking about. Notice that the Caribbean coast is rather short for us, no more than 130 something miles long, very straight and monotonous here. The Pacific coast is much more irregular. We have a bunch of bays and coves and points and peninsulas and things. It's almost 5 times longer because it's so irregular like that, right? The picture on top right here is a view of the Tilarang volcanic range. This is the iconic view of Arenal volcano. This is home for me. I live very close to that volcano, and this is where I started leading tours back in the days in the early 90s, taking people up here to see the active volcano at the time, erupting and all that. So this is a pretty cool shot of those mountains right here. And then we also have a series of mountain ranges, and then the lowlands. I'm going to show you this map here. It tells you better. This is the Caribbean coast, very straight, Pacific, very regular. And then the mountain ranges. This is one here, another here, another one. This is the central range, and then the south part of the country in the high Talamancas. lowlands either side of the mountains, and then intermountain valleys right here. Basically, these two major areas within intermountain valleys, right? This basically represents the topography of the country. All right. And now, climate, another important thing. We do have only two seasons in this part of the world. Rainy season and less rainy season. We actually, yeah, there are some periods of time that we don't have rain here, believe it or not, but it's raining right now out here. But anyways, generally, especially for the Pacific areas of the country, closer to the Pacific coast at least, because those mountain ranges split the country in two. We also have the continental divide running through us here, and then we have the Caribbean slope and then the Pacific slope or the Pacific drainage. So essentially, the areas on the Pacific side, you'll see why in a minute, stay drier than those on the east side or the Caribbean side, right? But the official names for these seasons are wet and dry season. Generally, the wet season goes from May to December, and then the dry season starts middle of December and goes all the way through the end of April generally. But that's been changing a little bit in the last couple of years. It's generally warm in the lowlands and cool in the highlands. But let's look at this. These are the influence from trade winds. We have northeastern trade winds, the northern winds, and also South Pacific trade winds that bring moisture into the country. So the interaction between these winds, the moisture they collect, and the interaction with the mountain ranges and systems here creates a series of major climatic regions, but also a bunch of microclimates, adding to the contribution of having such high diversity, like we say here. Okay. Let me share with these couple of other maps here. These are general areas. This one here on the top left shows temperature ranges. As you see, it's generally cool in the mountains. The blue spots are, it gets up to the coolest temperature ever registered for us here. It's 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the warmest temperature, and that 15 is this blue, dark blue dot right here where I have my laser pointer. And then the warmest temperatures generally happen here in the northwestern areas of the country, where we have what we know as the dry forest, the tropical dry forest. Is a beautiful place up there. And temperatures reach above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I think it was 104, 105, the highest temperature ever registered for us. And then this other map shows the main precipitation regimes of the country. It's wetter, like I was saying, right? These are the mountain ranges running through here, and it's wetter right here. And then drier on this side. Also wet here in the South Pacific, because remember, there's winds that move in from the South Pacific Ocean, bringing more moisture to these areas than to other parts of the country. All right. And then these interaction, again, all these climatic influences have, okay, here we go. They have brought to us seven, there's only 6 here, but there's 7 main climatic regions of the country with pretty dramatic differences. For example, here on this purple one here, that we get areas 140, 150 inches of rain a year, inches. And then on this side, crossing the volcanic ranges and coming to the other side here, we have areas that receive 45 to 50 inches a year. And these are the driest parts of the country. The thing is that they get those 50 inches in 3 months, 3.5 months, 4 months sometimes. They get those 50 inches of rain. As you see, as you go south, there's a transition here, kind of not so dry, not so wet, and then it gets wet here in the South Pacific. And then the Central Valley, where the cities, the major cities are it's pretty mild. The climatic conditions there are pretty mild, and generally speaking, and that's why most people live there probably. And then once you are on the east side, where you're more exposed to rain, and that's where I live. I live right about here, so I can tell you about rain a little bit. So pretty extreme changes, and from one side to the mountains to the other. Okay, let's see what comes. Okay, here we go. Now, these are life zones. What exactly are life zones? Life zones are basically a belt of elevation, generally, that due to the specific precipitation, temperature, humidity conditions, right? They create ecosystems, basically. They create ecosystems of biomes, right? And this map shows some of the life zones. There are 12 established life zones. This was a system created here in Costa Rica back in the 1950s. And then it's used ecologically many places in the world to determine which species need more attention, which areas need more attention when it comes to conservation and things. But then this is basically just to show you all the different life zones that we have. There's 12 definitive plus 7 that are known as transition, so a total of 19 different areas of the country. But now let's look at this. These are the mega diverse countries of the world, okay? What exactly is a mega diverse? Well, there are countries that harbor the largest amount of species in the world, right? This was determined at the end of the 1990s by Conservation International, right? And they came up with a list of 17 mega diverse countries in the world. And here I am trying to convince you that Costa Rica has one of the highest biodiversities in the world, but we're not here. Look, we are here, and then we're not shown there. Well, they missed us. No, they didn't, because we don't have as many species as we have. But we have something special here. Costa Rica must be one of the most biologically intense places in the world, in an area that represents, this is a good, right here, I'm going to put it, the dot right here, only about 0.03% of the total land mass that has emerged so far, right? We are home to what's estimated 5 to 6% of the world's biodiversity. We're home about maybe 500,000 species and counting, of all kinds, not just birds. This is plants, insects, you know, marine, everything that it's included in that package. So this is where Costa Rica stands out, right? Let me tell you with these charts, right? Now we're back to birds, specifically to birds. The first 3 on that list are the countries with the highest number of species in the world. These numbers need to be updated by the minute almost, but Colombia has pushing almost 1970, something like that. There's more species in Colombia these days, but anyhow, this gives you an idea, right? Colombia, Peru, and Brazil are the countries that are home to the largest number of bird species in the world, right? All of them right down there in South America. And then our nearest neighbor and rival, now we do get along really well with Panama. It's obviously Panama. They're pushing 1,000 species in Panama. And Costa Rica, we are in position number 22, and we have right now 922. I have to say that, right? We recently, with splits and additions and whatnot, we ended up having 923 species. 22, I'm sorry. Okay, so this doesn't look good for what I'm trying to say, right? There's those big countries up there, I mean, with pushing 2,000 species of birds, and then there we are about halfway down. But then on this next chart, you're gonna see where we shine. This is where we make a difference, right? And this is, again, that the density of species, right? This was measured number of species per every 1,000 square kilometers. As you see there, Costa Rica, we have 18, average 18 different species per every 1,000 square kilometers in an area of 51,100. Okay, so that gives you an idea. Then there is Panama, right? But Panama is about 1.5 times. If you see the right column, rightmost column right there, Panama is 1.5 times bigger than Costa Rica. And then there comes Colombia. They have only 1.7 species per every 1,000. But Colombia is 22 times larger than Costa Rica. Look at Brazil, 0.2. That changes everything. But look how huge Brazil is. 100, and I put Brazil there basically because of, you know, it's a big country. 160 times bigger than Costa Rica. So these are where we stand out. Costa Rica might be one of the countries that has the highest density of species in the world, right? There are other small countries but they have lower numbers. They have like 500-600 species. We have almost 1,000, well, 900 plus species right now. Okay, so this is where we make a difference. Okay, now let's look at this other slide here, and this is more specific about Costa Rica, right? Like I said, 922 species. There are 80 plus families. Approximately 23% of the birds that we have registered for Costa Rica are migrants. The vast majority of them are North American migrants, spend the winters here. Okay, there's only a handful of them that migrate from South America, but those are breeding migrants. They come to breed here and they return to South America afterwards. Only about a dozen of them, really, not many. Of those 900 plus birds that we have, there are 60 that are regional endemics. What is that? What do I mean by regional endemics? These are birds that are only found in this portion of northern, well, basically southern Central America. We share them with Panama. We are friends with Panamanians, so we share a lot of birds with them. So there are about 60 of those 60 plus species that are only found in this part of the world, Costa Rica and Western Panama. Most of them originated in the mountains in the south, because again, with the formation of all those mountains, all those geological events that we talked about earlier, raised and then separated some of the species and then formed new microhabitats, new species, and then basically we ended up having those numbers. 7 of the birds that we have in this country are endemics, only found here in this country. 4 of them are here in the mainland. There's 3 others that are found on Cocos Island. Cocos Island is about maybe 300 miles southwest in the Pacific, in the direction of Galapagos Islands. It's a tiny little island, and there's 3 endemics in that part: a finch, a cuckoo, and a flycatcher. All of them known as with the name Cocos, because that's the name of the island, Cocos Island. Okay. Let me see. Oh, here, there's the map on the bottom right here. This is eBird. Most of you probably know that platform eBird, and this shows the hotspots of Costa Rica. These are the reported hotspots. Anything that's in red has more than 500 species reported. So basically, this tells you that Costa Rica is a pretty popular destination right here. Okay, birds on the pictures are, this is a prong-billed barbet, strict-chested ampita, and orange-colored manakin. All of them found here, obviously in our forest. Now let's look at this other. I like this because, you know, we've been comparing basically. These I just did this afternoon with the most updated eBird, right, lists for birds of the United States right here, okay, and 51 states right here. As you see, 1,170 species have been reported on eBird. Okay, remember we're the size of West Virginia. And now let's look at the bottom here. In our 7 provinces, we have 903. Numbers are not that distant if you compare the size of them. And then going back to the eBird hotspots, this tells you that more and more people are going out every day to find birds and describe new sites and places like that. So that's why Costa Rica is such a popular destination. Not only that is because also we are very close. We are a couple hours flight from Miami, 4-hour flight from LA, you know, so it's not that far to visit. What's next here? Okay, I wanted to start describing a little bit more to the birding areas, and more specifically about the introduction to birding of Costa Rica that we have planned for our trip. Basically, there are the main 5 areas: the lowlands, the rainforest on the east and south Pacific, and then the dry forest of the northwest areas of the country. We have the middle elevations, some of the wet foothills, the Caribbean foothills. I forgot to mention that some of the rainiest places of the country, they may get up to 200 inches a year. Those are on some of the foothills. Highlands, generally in the nice cool highlands, cloud forest, and Paramo. Paramo is the picture in the bottom right here. Basically, it's above timberline. These are areas above 11,000 feet in an elevation that offer these conditions, very nice and cool. Wetlands, mangrove. This is an area here, the picture on top. It's a mangrove. We have marshes and floodplains in most places. All of our wetlands are protected as well, right? And then the urban areas, which are very important. Your gardens, the city park, you know, places like that. You can see along the stream, places like that. they're also very important birding areas. In our trips, generally we choose nice hotels, nice lodges that have very nice grounds. And in the Central Valley of the country, represent a very good representative of those urban areas is Hotel Bougainvillea, where we have some of the basically the introduction, the 101 birds of the country, right? This one here is a rufous collared sparrow. It's very common. You will just walk out of your hotel and you'll see 2 or 3 of them right there. They're very common and beautiful too. They have a beautiful song as well. Another common bird, and we should take a moment to talk about this one because this is our national bird, folks. This is our national bird, the clay-colored thrush. I know you're thinking, we have all those beautiful, colorful birds, amazing looking birds and all that, and then we come up with this as a national bird. Well, there's a story behind it. And right now, as the rainy season is starting in most places of the country, these birds, they go nuts. They go singing every single morning and all day sometimes. So it was for the farmers, still for the farmers, that thanks to these birds singing, that we get the rains that they need so much, especially in the coffee plantations. So that was sort of that romantic story between the two, and the farmers and the bird. And then finally, around 1973, they decided to name this bird our national bird. So there you go. It's the story. Then continuing with the areas around the big cities, this is another fairly common bird. This is a blue-gray tanager. You will see it most places, most gardens, sometimes in the highlands, in the lowlands, middle elevation. This is a bird, it's everywhere. And it's beautiful. Look at the blue on that shoulder of that blue-gray tanager. I have a couple of them nesting outside my house. Just now. This one, this you have to work a little bit more for it, but the Bougainvillea grounds, it's a good place to see it. This is a white-eared ground sparrow. It's closely related to towhees, right? And obviously it stays on the ground, as the name suggests, and it has that amazing yellow patch on the side of the neck and the white ear right there. And this is typically found around our urban areas in Bougainvillea. Now I brought this other one here because this is an endemic species. This is a bird that's only found in Costa Rica. Cabanis' ground sparrow, very closely related to the just one we saw. And this one prefers abandoned or at least old coffee plantations. That is their favorite habitat. They're kind of like a specialist. As it turns out, back in the days, we did have more coffee. And more these days, especially in the central region of the country, that this bird has a very limited range. In the central areas, a lot of those coffee plantations are being turned into residential areas, condominiums, apartments, and things like that. In the central part of the country, we have about 60% of the population living in a small area. It's putting a lot of pressure under this. And we have been working together with, as you see, this is not my picture. Every other one you'll see is my own picture, but this one here is not. I got this from Cabanisi Project. This is a group of folks that are working to collect more information and then bring up some interesting projects to protect habitat for this bird and make sure that it will make it, because like I said, it's under a lot of pressure. And I have to mention that part of what we do in our tours, on our visits here, we work together with them, and then we provide a donation for local organizations such as this one here. This is a bird, we might have a chance to see it in that area around Bougainvillea Hotel, but not guaranteed, right? But there's a possibility. Let's look at the other place. So in the introduction trip, we moved to the central region. Remember, the North Pacific was dry and the South Pacific was wet. And then in the middle, there's that transition area where we find national parks such as Carara. We're gonna visit Carara National Park. There's also a river that runs through that area that obviously empties into the Pacific areas. And then to the north of that river, we have the dry forest area. So it's a pretty cool, right, encounter of habitats right there, of ecosystems basically right there, and then affording that transition. So oftentimes you find birds or species that are typically found in the Southwest, together with a bird that's typically found in the North Pacific West. So there you go. So that's a pretty intense area. Scarlet macaws are the iconic representative birds of that area. There's a good population of them, healthy population, nesting in and around Carrara National Park, and they roost also in the mangrove areas of Tárcoles River. Let's see what else we see there. This is one of those examples, a bird that generally goes south on the Pacific. This is one of the near endemics. This one we only share with Panama. The fire-billed aracari, that's the pronunciation of that, aracari. It's a type of toucan, obviously, smaller, a little bit more slender body. And that one reaches the Central Pacific and then goes into the Central Valley every now and then, okay? So we should see this. On the drier areas, as you can see, a little bit more scrubland there. This is some dry pastures. This is a double-striped thick-knee, pretty interesting bird. It's found, there's another one in South America, and there's another one in Africa, and that's about it, right? Very primitive looking, and we see it in the dry areas, right there in the middle of a pasture sometimes. Beautiful, big yellow eyes. It's mostly nocturnal. And this, we have to go in the forest. This is a deep forest bird, and it's not that big. It's really a few inches tall, and strict-chested anpita, most often detected by the call they make a nice song. Then you find them, and they are typically near the ground in very very shady areas of the forest, deep forest, and we see it in Carrara National Park. Around the hotels, well, specifically Villa Lapas Hotel, there's a roosting site for this owl, the biggest owl we have in the country. It's not as big as the great horned owl, but it's up in that range. Spectacle owl, you can see why it's called that. There's you can see its mate here to the to the left, but it just didn't come out in the picture. This was a date roost where I found them, and beautiful. They make this interesting call at night, like a very, very loud, kind of scary if you don't know what it is at times. But certainly an amazing bird. Look at those talons here on this amazing owl. Let's continue. All right, from there, in this trip, we go a little bit north and up into the mountains. We climb to between 5,000 and 6,000 feet, more or less. That's the elevation range for the Monteverde area. We stay at a very nice lodge, Cala Lodge, and we are basically going to explore the cloud forest. What is a cloud forest? Well, basically when the moisture comes in from either side from the oceans, and they push up, those winds go up the mountain, by the time they reach certain elevation, temperature drops. Remember, temperature here changes only with elevation, not with seasons. So by the time they reach up there, they condense and they form clouds, and the clouds stay there for a long time. So that's the cloud forest, all right? Very brief description, but I guess you get the idea. Prong-billed barbet, this is another near endemic, only found in Costa Rica and Western Panama, in the mountains, only in the mountains. They're closely related to toucans, barbets are. This is one of those that everyone wants to see. This bird performs an amazing local migration. It's an altitudinal migration within the country. They go up in the mountains, they breed, and then they go down to the lowlands, they go north, and they go east, and they go to the coast, and they go up again. They spend almost half a year traveling around, basically looking for food, until that time of the year comes, mostly late February, early March. Typically they get up to the mountains and they start mating, and it's a male, and it's given his bell call. It's like a loud bonk call, and then you can hear him from a good distance. The three-wattled bellbird, another near endemic. This is not a great picture, but this is a very small hummingbird, copper-headed emerald. It's only found in Costa Rica. And we do have a really good chance to see it in Monteverde. Actually, almost guaranteed that we see it in Monteverde, because they visit feeders, they visit gardens, they're around the bird. But this is a bird that is only found here in Costa Rica, copper-headed emerald. Another near endemic. This is northern emerald toucanet. Interesting bird because they stay up in the highlands and they move around eating fruits, eating berries, catching insects every now and then. But also they go for nests. They steal eggs and sometimes chicks from others. And so they're nice looking, but they could be trouble for some of the other birds, especially for this one that everyone wants to see. This is the jackpot. This is the bird that every person I think wants to see. This is the resplendent quetzal, folks. This is how you say it, quetzal. No, not no, quetzal. And this is found also from southern Mexico across Central America. There's two populations are separated, the northern Central America and then the southern Central America. The southern one is just Costa Rica and Panama, and this is what we have, okay? This is the resplendent quetzal, perhaps considered by many the most beautiful bird of the Western Hemisphere, and I'm sure it rivals with any other as the most beautiful bird in the world, all right? Resplendent quetzal, with some luck, we'll see it. It is pretty regular. We have a very healthy population of them in Costa Rica, although it is not abundant, but there, if you go to the right places, you should be able to see it. This is a male, of course, and then these feathers are not truly part of the tail. These are tail coverts. This white thing here is the actual tail, but these are tail coverts used specifically for ornament to attract females. Both parents tend the nest. And then we go over to the east side of the mountains. Across again, we go up first and then down on the east side. Remember, we started on the Pacific, we go up and then drop down to the east side. To the middle elevation, Caribbean rainforest foothills around Arenal Observatory Lodge. And then we do a field trip to Caño Negro National Wildlife Refuge, which is way north, close to Nicaragua. This bird we have, it's a keelbill motmot, not common, not easy to find, but then there's a couple of spots around that area that you go and then you give it a good try and then you should come up with a picture like this. My good friend Kat Gill knows about it. She's seen it. All right. Oh, I went back. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Now, in this Caribbean foothills rainforest, there are many times, well, sometimes I have to say, if you're lucky, you see moving swarms of army ants. So as these army ants move, they eat everything. They kill and eat everything. So almost every other critter that's out there tries to run from the ants. They try to, they flee from the ants. And then these birds, the ant birds, they follow the ants, not to eat the ants, but to eat those other critters that are trying to save their lives from the ants. Not much luck for them. This is a beautiful one. This is an ocellated ant bird, an amazing looking bird. Not small. This bird is probably what, maybe 6-7 inches long, maybe something like that. It's very pretty. They generally stay low, close to the ground, and we can see it with some luck in areas around the lodge here. Then Caño Negro. Caño Negro it's not easy to find just one bird. You have to try really hard because there's always many of them. Like this picture, it's a 2-for-1. This is a russet-nape wood rail, largest member of the rail family in the country. It's almost the size of a chicken. And then the sun grebe, which is an interesting bird because it doesn't like the sun and is not a grebe. It's a bird of a family of their own. They're part of the finfoots of the old world. And ours here, they like these calm rivers and they swim, bobbing their head like that. And they don't dive like grebes do. They don't. They were just named that. And then the colorful one in the back, obviously, is the wood rail. Looks like a bird out of a cartoon almost. These two, you can regularly see him in Caño Negro National Wildlife Refuge. We do a boat trip there. This is seen by boat. We go on a small boat and then we go into the river and the wetlands there. Like I said, not easy to find just one bird. This is another one that everyone wants to see. The jabiru. Jabiru stork is almost 5 feet tall. It's the biggest bird we have in the country. In the background, roseate spoonbills. In the foreground, the great egrets for size comparison. They're next to each other. Look how big that bird is. Look at the size of that bill, right? they go and look for fish and eels and tadpoles and other things in the wetlands. I'm going to move on. Black and white owl, there's a community of them, a population of them, I have to say, that is found near the lodge. And we go out at night sometimes, or if you're lucky, we find a date roost here, like this one. Black and white owl, beautiful, beautiful bird. Definitely beautiful. Very active during the night. So that was basically going back to the owl, the description here of what we do in the trip. Like I said, we have a very good relationship with some of the lodges, and we know all these little secret places like that. So it'll be great to see you guys here. Now, everything we've seen, the biodiversity and all that, and what is Costa Rica doing to protect all this? Basically, we have now protected at a public level more than 26% of our land in 8 different categories of national wilderness areas, protected wilderness areas. National parks, biological reserves, and then the list goes like that. So 26% at a public level, the government has a department called the National System of Conservation Areas. And then at a private level, non-government organizations and individuals, we have another more or less 5% of the land that's being protected. So we're talking about almost 1/3 of the land in this country that's being protected. The current efforts are now to connect all these areas with one another via biological corridors. We're trying for that, right? We do have some threats to wildlife, illegal poaching, deforestation, use of pesticides and things like that, but we're trying to counter-arrest all those things right now. And well, basically, this is where I like to finish and say that, you know, Costa Rica has more than just birds, right? And we very much like to take good care of our biological wealth, because we have you know, a material wealth, a cultural wealth, and a biological wealth. And we try here very much to protect our biological wealth. As you can see, Costa Rica is a small country. We have a saying here. It's like a small town grocery store. It's small, but it has everything, right? And we kind of figure in that way here. So I want to thank you all for attending. Right now, I think Kath wants to talk to you guys a little bit about the details of the trip. And if there are any questions, I will, you know, check your messages in a little bit. And well, hopefully you enjoyed it. And like I said, hopefully I'll see you here in the trip next year. So thank you all very much. And Kath?
Thank you so much, Mario, for the presentation. It was very, very interesting. And I find the kind of understanding why the biodiversity in Costa Rica is so tremendous. That was a great overview and very exciting trip. I had the opportunity to go to Costa Rica about 3 years ago, and it's beautiful, and I would love to go back. So I certainly hope that other folks will be as excited about this as I am. We did have a couple of questions that were sent to us via the chat. And I guess the first one was more or less Kath answered. Could you send us a copy of the trip summary? And so, as Kath said, we'll have all that information posted on our website in the next week or so. So watch for that. And I think you'll find that there. Susan wondered about the pandemic and the effect of the livelihood on local guides and the ecological businesses. So Mario, can you perhaps talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for your question. It does, I mean, it has changed a lot, our livelihood here. I was for more than 1 year without leading trips. There was obviously nobody around. The country is now open. We're seeing more tours. In fact, next week I do have a tour for some folks from California. But in my particular case, I have been busy doing some woodwork here at home, small pieces, shelves, and things. Then I've been able to sell some of that, and, you know, helping pay the bills, as you say. But it definitely has changed a lot, and same for some of the reserves and some of the hotels. The main industry of Costa Rica is tourism. Basically, its #1 income source for the country is tourism. Not just ecotourism, but there's all general beaches and resorts and things like that. But it is definitely #1. So by not having anyone visiting the country has been quite a challenge. It has been also, just like most of the world, I mean, we're not the exception, and we have been able to reinvent ourselves, right? And find out things that we knew, things that we didn't know we know before. You know what I mean? So, but it has definitely affected dramatically. The country is now in a more stable condition. We are beginning to get vaccines, and we do have, we were one of the first Latin American countries to get vaccines. And we have a very strong healthcare system in the country as well. And we also, as Costa Ricans, we like to help each other as much as we can. But it was difficult. It was hurting a lot of businesses and a lot of our, us essentially. But it's all going to be better pretty soon. Thank you.
That's good news, Mario. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. We have a question from Nancy Ann, and she's wondering about how much walking would be involved in this trip. I think she's kind of wanting to get a feel for what level of ability activity would be happening in the trip to Costa Rica.
Kath, do you want to give a perspective on that, or do you want me to?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you. Let me put the video on. Okay, here we are. There is there is walking every single day. Obviously, we go out for 2 or 3 hours. At times a little more than that, maybe, but the terrain varies from flat to moderate hilly terrain. We don't do any type of extreme strenuous hikes to a spot to find specific birds. We go more in a nice, not leisurely, but nicely paced walks, and then we find things along the way. But there is walk, and especially places up in the mountains, right? As you can imagine, the terrain is a little bit more irregular, so there's a little bit more climbing, but nothing extreme, nothing too strenuous. But there will be walks in the morning and typically walks in the afternoon. Consider 2 to 3 hours each one of them. Depending on how the activity is, we might stay a little longer, right? And regarding the temperatures, they will range from warm areas on the coast and then to rather cool places up in the mountains. But again, we won't be in any extreme conditions like that. I don't know if I answer your question. It's very, very vague what I just gave you, but that might help.
Well, I think the key is this is not a hardcore birding expedition where people are going to be tromping up trails to the top of mountains. It's going to be fairly. Don't know if leisurely is quite right, but just a trip that most people should be able to do. And of course, I suspect if you're just not up for it for that day, you can stay back at the lodge for the day and bird around there. Well, I don't see any other questions. Kath, did you have something more you wanted to add?
I was just going to add about the walking and the hiking is that I think, it is possible to stay at the lodge, or, there might be a special bird that we're going to go see. And it might be longer. Someone can choose to go or not. And also, I know I've seen they have these like hiking, I don't know if it's a pole or a cane that has a little seat attached to it. So that might be something to bring along, if you wanted to take a rest while we're out.
Well, great. Thank you, Kath. And I don't see any more questions. So Mario, maybe we can see your face one more time, and thank you so much for the presentation.
Hey, David,
Yeah,
Can I interrupt you really quick?
please.
Sorry, this is Jenny. I just wanted to let everyone know that we will be sending out an email to everyone who registered in the next few days that will have a link with the itinerary and all the details, the dates, and also a survey for, as Kath mentioned, for you to express if you're interested in the trip or not. So keep an eye on your inboxes because we'll be sending it directly to you.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that reminder and that update on that. So thank you, everyone. I'm not sure if you all quite figured it out or understood, but Mario is coming to us live from Costa Rica. So I think that's pretty cool that we have this technology to have a presentation from somebody who's how many miles south of us? 6,000, I don't know.
Quite a few.
Quite a few, but fortunately he's in the same time zone, so he's not having to stay up too late either. But Mario, thank you. That was a terrific presentation.
Dave, can you hear me? This is Alan Gubonic.
Yes, Alan.
I wonder if I might make a comment. Mario, thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
For those of you who are wondering about Costa Rica, I have been there 6 times. And I would go back again at the drop of a hat. And I encourage any of you who can do it to go. You will love the country. The birding is fantastic. The wildlife is fantastic. The scenery is fantastic. Now I say I've been there 6 times. Mario, I'm going to be going a 7th time. You know, you have a trip scheduled with Holbrook Travel, May 11th to the 19th. My wife, Teresa, and I will be there. Debbie Sturdivant from Holbrook talked me into it. So I will be going to Costa Rica for the 7th time with Mario as my trip leader. And so when I get back, I can tell all of you these glowing reports of how great a field guide and a birding leader Mario is. So Mario, I'm looking forward to it. We'll see you in May.
It will be awesome to see you here, Alan. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for joining. Yes, that was great.
I will now mute myself.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate that. And I assume that's May 2021?
Yes, it is next month.
Awesome. Well,
Right.
that's terrific. Good for you. And that's very exciting. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And please, if you have any questions about the trips, about Audubon, about birds, don't hesitate to reach out to us via our website or our emails if you have them. But we look forward to seeing you all at the next event. And thank you for coming this evening. And you all have a good night. Take care now. Bye-bye.